Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner, and today's topic, I want to cover Amstel Gold. It's Wednesday, so we only have a few more days left before Amstel Gold begins. It's one of the big one-day races. Used to be one of the World Cup races in my day. I think they should still be called World Cup races when you're talking about Amstel Gold, LBL, Lombardy, Paris-Roubaix, all the 5 monuments, of course, along with Amstel Gold is a beautiful race. 253 kilometers. My first experience doing it back in the day with FDJ, we're pulling up in the team cars. They didn't have buses in the 90s, guys. I'm talking about late 90s, and there were no team buses. We pulled up in the cars, and the crowd was so thick and so strong that you had to fight to get the doors open so that you can get on the back bumper and get oil down on the legs so that you could stay warm, because it's always going to be miserable out at Amstel Gold. Every year I was doing it back in the 90s. Everything seemed miserable in the 90s because I was hurting left and right. But I have returned back during my later years when I was racing for Radio Shack, and I've gone top 10 at Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne, and Liège Bastogne-Liège. So I know what the riders are going to be experiencing. But Mathieu van der Poel is going to have a different experience than what he's come from. He did Paris-Roubaix. I never had to do it. I was coming into Amstel, Flèche, and Liège like we're going to see the UAE Team Emirates crew come in, right? It's going to be Brandon McNulty there. Almeida is going to go. Ayuso, who just got done winning the Basque Country's coming over. That's normally how I would do my seasons, is do the Basque Country and then come over to the Classics. Sometimes I have skipped these Classics when California's calendar had interrupted and been really close to the Classics, where I focused on California because I was with Radio Shack, a U.S. team. So sometimes that took precedent. But this was my favorite one-day week of racing right here. And the whole calendar, it's marvelous. The fans are absolutely packed and stacked everywhere at Amstel. It's basically little loops all over the place. They're going to have so many climbs on the course that aren't even rated on the course. It's always going up. It's always going down. It's bike paths. It's lefts. It's rights. You can never stop paying attention. No matter how tired the riders get, their heads always have to be up, and you have to be paying attention to everything around you when you enter and when you exit these small little villages here, up here in Amstel Gold. You have to be careful. The Netherlands, when you're racing, it is absolutely ridiculous the kind of road furniture you have up here at Amstel Gold, so never fall asleep. Mathieu van der Poel's big difference between Flanders and Paris-Roubaix, especially Roubaix, where it's all flat and cobbles, is going to be that now you take a team like UAE Team Emirates, where Niels Palet was there battling against him at Flanders and at Paris-Roubaix. Now they're bringing in a whole nother squad. And in that whole other squad, now all of a sudden they have multiple numbers. Mark Hirschi, he's a classic specialist. There's no doubt about that. The guy's gone top 5s in these one-day races throughout his career. Ayuso just got done winning the Basque Country, like I said, but he's a little inexperienced when it comes to these Classics. He's done them before, but he doesn't have any good results here. We see Brandon McNulty. It's not exactly ideal for Brandon McNulty, but Brandon McNulty has so much power and is so quality of a rider that I'm going to put him up here on the second page for sure. And of course, when we look at a rider like Almeida, we know that those 4 riders, when we're talking Mark Hirschi, Almeida, Ayuso, Brandon McNulty, these are all $1 million riders, $1 million plus, and they're all on the same team. So that's going to be really difficult situation when we're talking about Mathieu van der Poel. We go back to Paris-Roubaix. If you remember right on Butterfly Effect, I said Mathieu van der Poel, there was only one second page that had one name on it, and that was Mads Pedersen. Mathieu van der Poel was on page 1. All by himself. Nobody was on the same level. We start here at Amstel Gold. Same scenario. Mathieu van der Poel, he's the only person, the top dog, the 5-star favorite, the Mac Daddy, the one and only guy you really got to be paying attention to here. And if you're UAE Team Emirates, you got to get his Alpecin de Koninck riders on the front. You cannot, like we saw at Paris-Roubaix, where Trek was riding early with Alpecin de Koninck, you cannot ride with Alpecin de Koninck. You need Mathieu van der Poel to eliminate all his riders as fast and as soon as you possibly can. And Amstel Gold's not going to be anything like we saw at Paris-Roubaix. So Alpecin de Koninck, they are coming in with stronger climbers on their team, because Soren Kragh Andersen's going to be here. Axel Lawrence is on the team, and he's a big-time fighter. It looks like he climbs okay. He's a young kid, but he's gone good in the climbs too. And then, of course, we see Quinten Hermans. Quinten Hermans came from the Basque Country. So we see Alpecin de Koenig's team change too, but of course Mathieu van der Poel, page 1, 5-star favorite. Let's get back over to that second page though, because that's the big time difference between Paris-Roubaix, that we just got done witnessing the domination of a 60-kilometer solo effort right out there from Mathieu van der Poel. And so when we get here into Amstel Gold, now it's a bit different because the second page list is littered with riders. It's not just Mads Pedersen there. It's littered left and right, riders all over. When we start looking at one rider that I want you to pay attention, Benoit Cosnefroy, the AG2R rider. He just got done winning the Prinzipil, and he's been winning throughout this season, stage races and one-day classic races. So he's on the second page and one of the highlighted riders. Jorgensen, I looked at one of his earlier posts just this morning before I came on air here. He says all systems are go. That means that he's recovered from his sickness. That means he's riding 5-hour training rides. And it means that hopefully for us fans sitting on the Chesterfield, Jorgensen's form makes it back just in time to that same level that we saw at Flanders. Now, hopefully, Jorgensen, if you're paying attention, you're not pulling out those same tricks that you did at Flanders, because those were ridiculous knucklehead tricks, and I'm blaming your director sportif for that. I hope that wasn't you that started attacking 120 kilometers from the finish at Tour of Flanders before even your teammates started loosening up the field and getting the field all broken up. That was a ridiculous move. And when you look at that attack from Mathieu van der Poel when he was going solo at Flanders, Jorgensen was the last rider holding on, trying to close the gap back up to the Mathieu van der Poel. If you hadn't attacked earlier, who knows what would have happened right then at that moment. Maybe you're capable of following. Then maybe Mathieu van der Poel does 20 kilometers on the front like he did again with Mads Pedersen sitting on him. Who knows? We don't know the outcome of that, but we know Mathieu van der Poel's flying form. But Jorgensen says he's ready to go. There isn't very many riders listed there from Visma Lease bike. They only had 3 when I came on air here. And Thies Benoot's on good form, so he's got some help. And Dylan Van Barley was sick at Paris-Roubaix. Hopefully it was a small sickness and he's ready to go here for Amstel Gold. And for sure, Visma Lease bike are going to find some more talent there to back up Jorgensen. But whatever you do, Jorgensen, do not attack. And don't be the first rider attacking. You don't want to attack once it gets down to a small group. Once we see that Mathieu van der Poel is a bit more isolated and has no teammates left, then you want to be attacking. But if we start still looking at that second page of favorites, Michael Woods has had a slow start, but he's gone good, especially at Flesch and LBL. Amstel's a little bit more complicated for Michael Woods. He doesn't have the best bike handling skills that I've ever witnessed in the Pro Peloton, so we might have some more problems here at Amstel Gold, but I'm not going to leave off the Canadian rider just because of a slow start, because normally about this time of the season is when we start seeing Michael Woods surely adding himself to the second page, because that guy, he's gone podium at LBL, and this race here at Amstel Gold, little more chaos than LBL, but about the same kind of quality riders, just got to do a little more fighting. So that's why Woods is on the second page, but I think a little further down. Other riders on that second page, got to go look over at EF Education's Ben Healy. Ben Healy had a solid ride here at Amstel Gold going against Tadej Pogacar, who was flying in solo last season in 2023 here at Amstel Gold, then won Flesch, then of course broke his arm at LBL. He's not starting here at Amstel Gold. We'll see him later though during this week, no problem. So stay patient for there, because then when Tadej Pogacar comes, we got 2 riders on page 1. Let's stay again on page 2 though, because there's still some more riders that we know could be big time favorites up here that can battle against Mathieu van der Poel if you can get him isolated, and if you can get the Dutchy rider on the front at some point in time having to chase some moves. All of a sudden, Mathieu van der Poel could be beatable here at Amstel Gold. But remember, my first experience at Amstel Gold with Mathieu van der Poel was when I first started really experiencing what Mathieu van der Poel could do when he won in 2019, and he just jumped across the groups and then won the sprint right at the finish. With 10K to go, he just lit everybody up, rode the front and bridged across gaps and did everything left and right. I expect he has better form than that 2019 win here at Amstel Gold, but if the riders could race intelligently, especially UAE Team Emirates with their 4, if not 5 favorites up here sitting on the second page, those guys could cause some problems as long as you make Alpecin de Koenig have to chase everything. You want them chasing everything. When I watched the Paris-Roubaix, the women's edition of the Paris-Roubaix, it was ridiculous, the tactics I'd seen throughout that Paris-Roubaix, where basically Lotte Kopecky was sitting back there getting a free ride. Her teammate, Lorena Wiebes was sitting back there getting a free ride. Everybody was pulling on the front for SD Works. And then, of course, we've seen the outcome of that after a lot of Kopecky just killed everyone at the finish. But let's get back here into Amstel Gold and continue on to that second page where one of the riders is Skilmos. Matheus Skilmos, we got to keep an eye on. He was looking good at the Basque Country, wearing the race leader's jersey on the last and final stage, but of course messed up on that last and final Category 1 climb, the penultimate climb of Stage 6. Tactically, he messed that up, but when you look at Skilmos as a whole, he's gone very good in these classic races. I think he can handle his bike amazingly well here when we're talking about Amstel Gold and fighting for position and stuff. So Skilmos is going to be another rider from Trek, and he's going to take over the place for Mads Pedersen was the only rider on page 2. Now, Trek still have a rider on page 2, but his name is Skilmos. Skilmos is going to be a fine rider, and you absolutely have to pay attention to him. Now, the last rider I'm going to talk about on page 2, and there's at least 10 riders. I would imagine 12 or 13 that can make it on page 2 versus that one rider of Mads Pedersen during Paris-Roubaix that was on page 2. The last rider I want to talk about, though, Tom Pidcock. Pidcock has gone very, very well here at Amstel Gold. Remember that bike throw at the line against Wout van Aert? They gave the win to Wout van Aert, but Pidcock still thinks he won that race. Anyways, he's gone marvelously well here at Amstel Gold. We saw him in the finishing group with all the Alpecin de Koenig riders after the forest where Thomas Pidcock was still fighting there on Paris-Roubaix, and he's a small rider in size, so Paris-Roubaix would not have been ideal for the British rider. But once you get him here to Amstel Gold, Tom Pidcock can handle his bike better than anybody. Even Mathieu van der Poel, as good as Mathieu van der Poel is as a bike rider, if you had, as a bike rider handling with skills, if I had to take one or the other, I'm going to throw in, this is going to be unheard of. I'm going to throw in some cyclocross viewing that I've watched. Tom Pidcock, I think, can handle his bike better than Mathieu van der Poel. Probably the best rider I've ever seen handling his bike, especially if you go back to his Tour de France when he's bombing down the descents on that Alpe d'Huez amazing victory he had, and he bombed down the descent and cleared like a 1.5, 2 minute gap up to the breakaway there and was bombing through riders left and right where the TV motorcycle camera couldn't even keep up with Pidcock. Those are the kind of skills that you want to have here at Amstel Gold. Mathieu van der Poel has them. Thomas Pidcock has them. So Tom Pidcock has to be on the second page of favorites right here, if not at the top of that page. I'm going to hold him a little bit from the top because, like I said, we just don't know exactly where he's at. But Strade Bianche went fourth. He's in the final group at Paris-Roubaix. But Pidcock's certainly on the second page. So Mathieu van der Poel has his hands tied and full with a lot of riders to keep an eye on, and it's not going to be like Paris-Roubaix where he could just ride his team on the front all the way into late in the race and nobody can chase him once he attacks with 60 kilometers to go. It's going to look a little bit different here at Amstel Gold. He is still the outright favorite though, Mathieu van der Poel, but Trek is tag teaming him. Mads is out, Skilmos is in, UAE Team Emirates are tag teaming him, Niels Paulet's out, a whole bunch of other riders he has to deal with. So Mathieu van der Poel has to be on his A game, and more importantly than even Mathieu van der Poel is going to have to be Søren Kragh Andersen, his second lieutenant. He's going to be right up there, super important. Axel Lorentz has to be phenomenal, and Quinten Hermans, who got done winning a stage at the Basque Country and was climbing pretty good, he's got to bring that kind of form over here to Amstel Gold and be super solid for Mathieu van der Poel so you could get him late and deep into the Amstel Gold course here so that he could just use his pure power while he's still fresh and the other riders don't have a chance yet to get some gaps on him. He's got to go big, but he's got to go late. And the biggest thing in my book for Alpecin de Koenig, can they get him within 30 kilometers of the finish line at Amstel Gold? And I think that's what they're going to have to do. Or Mathieu van der Poel is going to have a host of talented riders on the second page attacking them all over the place, and it's going to come down to tactics at Amstel Gold. It's a beautiful race. Make sure you tune in, make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next edition of Beyond the Coverage real soon.